A man at the top of his world, Patrick Lowe, decided to reward himself. He rewarded himself with a lavish trip to Dubai and with a beautiful mistress named Kendra. He booked them two $30,000 first-class tickets on the world's most exclusive new airline, Celestial Airways. It was the perfect betrayal. A perfect escape. He lied to his simple, unassuming wife, Jennifer, telling her it was a business trip. But as he and his mistress boarded the flight, champagne in hand, the lead flight attendant looked past him, smiled and said, "Mrs. Lowe, welcome aboard. The founder's suite is prepared as requested." Patrick turned, and his entire world shattered. His wife was already on the plane, and she wasn't the woman he thought she was. Patrick Lowe loved the feeling of a deal closing. He loved the solid, satisfying thud of a 100-page contract hitting his polished mahogany desk. From his 60th floor office at Apollo Global Management in Manhattan, he could see the entirety of Central Park, a green rectangle of insignificance dwarfed by the steel and glass monuments to wealth. His wealth. He adjusted the cufflink on his bespoke shirt, a small platinum disc. He was a master of the universe, and he had built his empire from nothing. His wife, Jennifer Lowe, was, in his opinion, a testament to his success. He'd found her, as he often told his colleagues over expensive scotch. She had been a waitress at a high-end bistro he frequented a decade ago, a sweet, beautiful girl who was, he felt, destined for mediocrity until he swept in. He had given her everything. A sprawling penthouse overlooking the park, a black Amex card with no limit, and most importantly, the prestigious Lowe name. In return, she managed his life with quiet efficiency. She handled the staff, organized the charity dinners, and was always ready with a supportive, placid smile. She was, he had decided, comfortably dull. She was a beautiful piece of furniture in his magnificent house, and lately he had grown bored of the furniture. That boredom had a name: Kendra Pierce. Kendra was an associate in the marketing department, 26 years old, and hungry. She was everything Jennifer was not: loud, ambitious, and thrillingly transparent in her desires. She didn't just admire Patrick's Patek Philippe watch, she asked how many deals it took to buy it. She wasn't content with a simple dinner, she wanted the world, and she wanted it now. For 3 months, they had been meeting in high-end hotels and dark bars, a clandestine affair that made Patrick feel young, vital, and most of all, powerful. The Dubai deal was the perfect excuse. A major acquisition was in its final stages. It required his presence, or so he told his partners. The real plan was to take Kendra. "It's a last-minute merger, darling," Patrick had said to Jennifer that morning, straightening his tie in their cavernous, sun-drenched bedroom. Jennifer was on her yoga mat, her back to him, breathing deeply. "Oh? That sounds intense," she replied, her voice muffled as she folded into a forward bend. "It will be. Brutal. I'll be gone for at least a week, maybe 10 days. He watched her reflection in the floor-to-ceiling window. She was still in great shape, he mused, but there was no spark. "Well, you work so hard, Patrick," she said, rising slowly. She turned to him, her face serene, her pale blue eyes clear. "Just be safe. Call me when you land." Of course, of course." He kissed her on the forehead. It felt like kissing a mannequin. He felt a small, sharp pang of guilt, which he immediately extinguished with a surge of self-importance. He deserved this. He worked hard enough for it. His real excitement was in the booking. He wasn't just flying to Dubai, he was flying Celestial Airways. Celestial was the newest, most talked-about airline on the planet. It was less an airline and more a private club for the stratosphere. They operated only a handful of routes from private terminals, and their first class was rumoured to make other international first-class cabins look like regional coach. Getting a ticket was nearly impossible unless you were a Celestial Circle member. Patrick, through a high-level client, had managed to secure a membership. He sat in his office, the door closed, and navigated to the sleek, minimalist website. He booked 2 first-class Starlight suites for the 9:00 p.m. flight from JFK to DXB. The total cost was just over $62,000. He charged it to his personal account, the one Jennifer's accountants didn't review. He forwarded Kendra's confirmation. Her reply was instant, a string of excited emojis. Patrick leaned back in his chair, smiling. He envisioned the look on her face when she saw the suite, the private minibar, the closing doors, the caviar service. They would drink Dom Perignon and join the most exclusive club in the world, 14 hours of uninterrupted decadence. That evening, he packed his Goyard suitcase. Jennifer sat on the edge of their massive bed, watching him. "Is it the Al Jamil merger?" she asked quietly. Patrick paused. "Yes, as a matter of fact." "How did you know?" "I remember you mentioning it last month. You said it was a difficult negotiation." "It is," he said, zipping the bag. "They're tough, but they haven't met me." "No," Jennifer said, a small, unreadable smile on her face. "They certainly haven't." "Well, good luck, Patrick. Knock 'em dead." He kissed her goodbye, the scent of her simple, lavender-scented lotion filling his nose. He walked out of the apartment, the door closing behind him with a heavy, silent click. He felt a sense of relief, of escape. He was leaving his dull, predictable life behind, if only for 10 days. He never once looked back. He never noticed the small, tight smile on Jennifer's face, or the way her eyes, usually so placid, seemed to be calculating, like the deep, cold blue of a winter ocean. He never imagined that his simple wife, the one he'd saved from a life of serving cocktails, was, in that very moment, sending a text message. To S. Martel. Message: "He's on his way. Confirm manifest for CA 0001, seat 1A, and his guest, 1B. We are green." The Celestial Airways terminal at JFK was not a terminal at all. It was an illusion of privacy, hidden behind an unmarked facade, far from the chaos of the main airport. A private curb, a silent doorman, and an entryway that felt more like a 5-star hotel lobby. Patrick had instructed Kendra to meet him inside, to avoid any chance of being seen together. He walked in, his suitcase gliding silently beside him. The air smelled faintly of white tea and leather. There was no check-in counter, only a woman with an earpiece sitting at an antique desk. "Mr. Lowe," she said, not even glancing at a screen. "Welcome. We've been expecting you. Ms. Pierce arrived just a moment ago. She's in the Polaris lounge. We'll take your luggage from here." Patrick nodded, feeling the familiar rush of power. This was service. He was known. He walked through a short, art-filled corridor and into the Polaris lounge. It was vast, but segmented into small, private living rooms. He saw Kendra in a secluded corner, already sipping champagne, her phone out, filming. "Patrick, baby," she squealed, a little too loudly. She jumped up and wrapped her arms around him, pressing a crimson-red kiss to his cheek. "This place is insane. Did you see the bathroom? The toilets are like 20,000. "Lower your voice, Kendra," he said, kissing her but simultaneously scanning the room. It was mostly empty, save for a few quiet, serious-looking people. "This isn't a nightclub. It's about discretion." "Oh, right. Discretion," she said, drawing the word out. She was wearing a tight, white Balmain dress that left little to the imagination. She looked fantastic, but next to the old money quiet of the other passengers, she was a neon sign. I've never seen anything like this," she whispered, her eyes wide. "That woman over there? I'm pretty sure that's the CEO of Netflix, and, oh my God, is that? It doesn't matter who they are, Patrick said, settling into the plush velvet armchair. A server appeared instantly. Mr. Lowe? Champagne? We are pouring the 2008 Dom Perignon Rosé. Of course, Patrick said. Kendra was vibrating with excitement. A rosé? I didn't even know they made that. She took a picture of the bottle, the flash bright in the dim lounge. Patrick winced. So, she purred, leaning in close, her hand tracing the lapel of his Xenia suit. Tell me about this business meeting. Is it super boring? Excruciatingly, Patrick said, playing along. Presentations, spreadsheets. I'd much rather be otherwise occupied. She said, taking a large gulp of her champagne. We have 14 hours, Patrick. We're going to be very occupied. Patrick felt a thrill. This was it. This was the life he deserved. A beautiful, exciting woman who appreciated the things he could give her. Not a wife who was content. Contentment was for the weak. Ambition was for men like him. He thought, for a fleeting second, of Jennifer. She was probably watering her orchids or reading one of her book club novels. The thought was so bland it almost made him laugh. He pictured her quiet, placid face, and then looked at Kendra, who was now pouting seductively for a selfie, the diamond tennis necklace he'd bought her glittering. He had made the right choice. An hour later, the same woman from the front desk approached them. Mr. Lowe, Ms. Pierce, we will be boarding in 5 minutes. You are in suites 1A and 1B. We can escort you now, if you'd like to settle in. Yes, we would, Patrick said, standing and offering his arm to Kendra. They were led down a private, carpeted hallway, completely bypassing any semblance of a gate. At the end was a single door that opened directly onto the jet bridge. Enjoy your flight, Mr. Lowe. We will, he said with a smirk. He and Kendra walked down the ramp. It was the first time he'd ever boarded a plane without seeing another passenger. At the entrance to the massive Airbus A380, 2 flight attendants in immaculate, deep navy uniforms stood waiting. Welcome aboard Celestial Airways, Mr. Lowe, the first attendant, a tall blonde woman with a European accent, said warmly. Her name tag read, Sophie, lead flight supervisor. Welcome, Ms. Pierce, the second attendant said. This way to the first-class cabin. Suites 1A and 1B are to your right, Sophie gestured. Patrick stepped through the doorway, Kendra clinging to his arm, her phone already out. He stepped into the cabin and stopped, genuinely impressed. It was less a cabin and more a series of private rooms. Polished wood, brass fittings, and ambient lighting. His suite, 1A, had a full-sized leather armchair, a separate bench, a massive screen, and a rose in a crystal vase. The adjoining suite, 1B, was identical. A sliding panel between them could be lowered to create one massive room. This is... Kendra was speechless for once. It's acceptable, Patrick said, trying to sound nonchalant. He tossed his briefcase onto the seat and turned to Sophie. We'll have more champagne, immediately. Of course, Mr. Lowe, Sophie said. But she didn't move. She was looking just past his shoulder, her warm smile turning into one of profound, genuine respect. Her posture straightened. Mrs. Lowe, the attendant said, her voice clear and bright. Welcome aboard. It's an honor to have you. The founder's suite is prepared exactly as you requested. Patrick's blood turned to ice. He heard a sound behind him. The crisp, impossibly sharp click-clack of high heels on the cabin floor. A scent, not of lavender, but of Frederick Malle's Portrait of a Lady, a perfume he'd never smelled before, dark and complex. He turned around, slowly. There, standing at the entrance to the first-class cabin, was Jennifer. But it was not Jennifer. Not his Jennifer. His wife, who he had left in yoga pants and a simple t-shirt, was now dressed in a razor-sharp, custom-tailored Tom Ford pantsuit in a deep burgundy. Her hair, usually in a simple ponytail, was blown out in a sleek, powerful style. Her makeup was flawless, and she was wearing a pair of large, intimidating diamond stud earrings he'd never seen before. She was not holding a carry-on. She was holding a slim, black leather portfolio. She looked, he thought in a daze, like a CEO. She looked like she owned the plane. Kendra, next to him, had frozen, her champagne flute halfway to her lips. Her jaw was slack. Jennifer's cool blue eyes swept over Patrick, then landed, with surgical precision, on Kendra. She took in the tight dress, the shocked expression, the hand still clinging to Patrick's arm. Jennifer didn't raise her voice. She didn't gasp. She just tilted her head, a small, polite, and utterly terrifying smile gracing her lips. "Patrick," she said, her voice as smooth as ice. What a surprise. "And Kendra, isn't it? From marketing." She then turned her gaze to Sophie, the lead attendant. "Sophie, lovely to see you again. Is the 5G connection stable? I have a board call with the Al Maktoum group in an hour." "Yes, Mrs. Lowe. We've routed it through the military-grade satellite. You'll have zero latency," Sophie replied. Jennifer nodded, then looked back at her shell-shocked husband. "Well, do try to enjoy the flight. I know I will." She turned and walked past the first-class cabin toward the very front of the aircraft. An attendant, who had been standing by a door Patrick hadn't even noticed, pulled it open. The door was marked with a simple, engraved brass plaque, "The Founder's Suite." Jennifer stepped inside, followed by the attendant. The door closed with a soft, expensive snick. Patrick and Kendra were left standing in the aisle, the sound of the main cabin door closing and the engines beginning to spool up, echoing the sudden, deafening silence between them. The plane began its pushback. The safety video, a beautifully produced piece of cinema, started to play on Patrick's screen. He couldn't hear it. The only sound in his head was the click of that suite door. The Founder's Suite. "Patrick," Kendra whispered, her voice shaking. She had gone pale beneath her spray tan. "What is going on? Who is she? You said she was a housewife." I don't know," Patrick stammered. He sank into his leather seat, his mind racing. This was impossible. This was a nightmare. How was she here? How did she look like that? Who was Mrs. Lowe? The attendant had spoken to her with a deference he, a 62,000 ticket holder, had not received. Sophie, the lead attendant, reappeared, her professional smile firmly in place. "Mr. Lowe, Ms. Pierce, can I get you that champagne before takeoff?" What is that suite?" Patrick demanded, his voice low and tight. "That is the Founder's Suite, sir," Sophie replied, her tone perfectly level. "And who?" "My wife. Mrs. Lowe is one of our most valued clients, sir," Sophie said, her eyes betraying nothing. "Now your champagne?" "No," Patrick snapped. "I want to see her." He stood up. Sophie didn't move, but she somehow blocked his path. "I'm afraid that's impossible, Mr. Lowe. The Founder's Suite is a private residence, and Mrs. Lowe has requested no disturbances whatsoever. Please, take your seat. We are about to take off." There was a steel in her voice that told him this was not a negotiation. Defeated, he slumped back into his chair. The massive A380 roared to life and lifted gracefully into the night sky. The seatbelt sign pinged off. Almost immediately, the panel between his and Kendra's suites slid open. Kendra was standing there, her arms crossed, her face a mask of fury. "You have 10 seconds to explain, Patrick, or I am walking. I don't know where, but I am done." "I told you, I don't know," he hissed, unbuckling. "This is a setup. She must have found out. She must have found out. Found out doesn't get you a private suite at the front of the plane. Found out doesn't get you a custom Tom Ford suit and a flight attendant who looks at you like you're the Queen of England. You lied to me, Patrick. Who is she? She's no one, Patrick insisted, but the word sounded hollow even to him. She was a waitress. Her parents are, I don't know, middle-class nobodies from Ohio. She's been living off my money for 10 years. Really? Kendra said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Because it looked to me like you were the one flying coach. She called me Kendra, from marketing. She knows who I am, Patrick. She knew we'd be here. The realization hit Patrick like a physical blow. This wasn't a coincidence. This was an ambush. Jennifer knew. She had known this morning, when she calmly wished him good luck. She had let him walk right into this. The 14-hour flight stretched before him like a prison sentence. The service began. It was, as promised, flawless. Caviar was served from mother-of-pearl spoons. The scotch was 25-year-old Macallan. But every time an attendant came by, Patrick felt their eyes on him. They knew. He was the fool, the cheating husband in 1A. Kendra, meanwhile, had descended from panic to sullen fury. This entire trip is ruined, she muttered, aggressively stabbing at her caviar. This was supposed to be our trip. Now I have to spend 14 hours hiding from your supervillain wife? What happens when we land? Is she having us arrested? Don't be ridiculous, Patrick said, though his heart hammered at the thought. She has no power in Dubai. Doesn't she? Kendra shot back. She's on a board call with the Al Maktoum Group. You know who that is, right? They own Dubai. We're flying into her territory, you idiot! Patrick's stomach twisted. He grabbed his phone. He had paid for the high-speed Wi-Fi. He sent a text to Jennifer. Jay, I can explain. Delivered. Not read. He sent another. What is this? What are you doing? Delivered. Not read. He tried to call. It went straight to a not available message. She was on the plane's internal network, and she had blocked him. He was trapped. Halfway through the flight, desperate, Patrick got up. He needed answers. He walked to the front of the cabin. A male flight attendant was standing discreetly near the door to the founder's suite. I need to speak to my wife, Patrick said. I'm sorry, sir. Mrs. Lowe is in a meeting and cannot be disturbed, the attendant said politely. A meeting? We're 40,000 feet over the Atlantic. Yes, sir. Her video conference. I don't care. You tell her that her husband is here. The attendant's smile tightened. Sir, I can assure you, Mrs. Lowe is well aware of your presence on this flight. Now, if you'll please return to your seat, I'd be happy to bring you another drink. Patrick looked at the man, then at the sealed door. He was powerless. He, Patrick Lowe, who could move markets with a phone call, couldn't get past a flight attendant. He returned to his seat, consumed by a cold dread. This was when the flashback hit him, not of his own life, but of hers. He tried to piece it together. The strange, small things he'd ignored. The book club meetings that were always conference calls. The charity she ran. Why did it have an office downtown? The frequent spa weekends she took, alone. And then, a memory. So small he'd almost missed it. About 3 months ago, the Cartier bracelet. He'd bought Kendra a Cartier Love bracelet, a $7,000 trinket. He'd been sloppy. He'd left the receipt on his home office desk, tucked into a folder. He'd remembered it the next day, rushing home in a panic. But the receipt was gone. He'd asked Jennifer if she'd seen it. Seen what, darling? She'd asked, not even looking up from her laptop. The housekeeper tidied up in here. Was it important? No, just an expense report. She had nodded. You should be more careful, Patrick. You never know who's watching. At the time, he'd thought she meant the housekeeper. He realized now, with dawning horror, she had meant herself. She hadn't just found the receipt. She had investigated. She had found Kendra. She had tracked their affair. And she had, somehow, built this entire, elaborate, humiliating trap. She knew he was booking the Dubai trip. She knew he'd use Celestial Airways to impress his mistress. He thought he was being a big shot. He was just a rat walking into a cage she had designed. Kendra had fallen into a restless, angry sleep. Patrick just sat there, in the dark, watching the flight map on his screen. The small plane icon crawled agonizingly slowly across the ocean, moving him, second by second, closer to a reckoning he was utterly unprepared for. The sun rose over the Arabian Peninsula, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The 14-hour flight was, at last, crawling to its end. Patrick hadn't slept. He had spent the night stewing in a toxic mix of scotch, dread, and wounded pride. Kendra had woken up an hour ago, her makeup smeared, her glamour gone, replaced by a cold, calculating resentment. "So," she said, sipping an espresso, "what's the plan, master of the universe? When we land, are we just going to check into our hotel and pretend your wife isn't in the same city?" The hotel. Right, Patrick muttered. He had booked them a royal suite at the Burj Al Arab. She won't follow us. She made her point. You really believe that? Kendra scoffed. You really think this is over? This is just the beginning, Patrick. A woman who can pull this, she gestured around the cabin, isn't just making a point. She's declaring war. Before Patrick could respond, the male flight attendant approached his seat. He was holding a single heavy cream-colored envelope, sealed with a wax D. "Mr. Lowe," the attendant said, his voice neutral. "A note from Mrs. Lowe. She will see you now." Kendra sat bolt upright. "Us?" The attendant looked at her as if noticing her for the first time. "No, ma'am, just Mr. Lowe. She was very specific. Please, sir, follow me." This was it. Patrick's heart hammered. He smoothed his suit, which felt rumpled and cheap. He stood up, his legs unsteady, and followed the attendant to the front. The attendant knocked softly on the door to the founder's suite. A voice from within, Jennifer's, called out, "Enter." The attendant opened the door and gestured for Patrick to step inside. Then he pulled the door shut, leaving Patrick alone with his wife. His jaw dropped. This was not a plane seat. It was an apartment. The room was larger than Patrick's entire Manhattan office. It was decorated in soft greys and blues, with original abstract art on the walls. To his left was a full, king-sized bed in a private bedroom area. To his right was a lounge with a sofa and 2 armchairs. And straight ahead, in front of a massive picture window, was a full-sized partner's desk, currently covered in documents and a sleek, silver laptop. Jennifer was sitting at that desk. She had changed. She was now in a cream-colored silk blouse and trousers, looking relaxed, as if she'd just woken up from a full 8 hours of sleep. A half-eaten breakfast of fruit and pastries sat on a tray. "Patrick," she said, not looking up from her laptop. "Sit." She gestured to one of the armchairs. He sat. The silence was deafening, broken only by the click of her keyboard. He was being summoned, like an underling. "Jennifer, what is this?" he finally managed. This plane, your clothes, the Al Maktoum call. What is going on?" Jennifer typed one last sentence, then closed the laptop. She swiveled in her chair to face him. Her expression was not angry. It was not sad. It was bored. It was the look he usually gave her. "I'm working, Patrick," she said simply, "which is more than I can say for you. You're supposed to be on a business trip, aren't you? How's that going?" "Stop it!" he burst out. "Stop playing these games. Who are you?" Jennifer sighed, as if explaining something to a child. "My name," she said slowly, "is Jennifer Davenport Lowe. Or, as of this morning, just Jennifer Davenport." "Davenport?" Patrick's mind went blank. The name was familiar. Yes, Davenport, as in Davenport Logistics, the largest private shipping and aviation conglomerate in the world. Patrick felt the blood drain from his face. Davenport Logistics wasn't just a big company. It was an empire, an old-money behemoth that owned ports, shipping lines, and, as he was now realizing, an airline. Your family." "My father," she said, "is William Davenport. My grandfather founded the company. She steepled her fingers, am the vice chair of the board and the CEO of our new ventures division. Celestial Airways is my pet project. My baby, if you will. I've spent the last 3 years building it from the ground up." Patrick's world tilted. You were a waitress." "I was," she nodded. "I was 22. I had just graduated from Yale, summa cum laude, not that you ever asked. And I was tired of being the Davenport heiress. I wanted to see if anyone could love me, Jennifer, the person. Not the portfolio. I took a gap year. I got a job. I lived in a tiny apartment. And I met you." She leaned forward. "You were so charming, Patrick. So ambitious. You, with your self-made narrative. I fell for it. I really did. I thought, here is a man who can build his own world. He doesn't need mine. So I played along. I let you rescue me. It was a romantic story, wasn't it? The powerful exec and the humble waitress. You lied to me," he stammered. "For 10 years. No, Patrick," she said, her voice hardening. "I omitted. You lied. You lied this morning. You lied last week. You've been lying for 3 months, 6 days, and... Let's see." She glanced at her watch. "About 14 hours. Ever since you bought that tacky Cartier bracelet for your 26-year-old marketing intern. This whole time, you've been running an empire. Yes, from our home office. Those charity luncheons, board meetings, my book club, legal briefings, my spa weekends, site visits to our new terminals in London and Singapore." Patrick stared at her, the pieces falling into place with sickening clarity. The woman he thought was dull, the woman he dismissed, was infinitely more powerful, more wealthy, and more brilliant than he could ever be. And then, the final, horrifying thought. My career," he whispered. "At Apollo." "Oh, that," she said, waving a dismissive hand. "Yes. That big leveraged buyout in 2018? The one that made you partner? Who do you think provided the anonymous equity partnership? That was a sovereign wealth fund. That was me, Patrick, through a blind trust in the Caymans. Your entire career hasn't been yours. It's been shall we say, a spousal allowance. I couldn't have my husband looking like a failure, could I? It's bad for the brand." He felt sick. He wasn't a master of the universe. He was a pet project, as she'd called her airline. He wasn't the king. He was the court jester, and he hadn't even known he was wearing the costume. "So this," he said, gesturing to the plane, to her. "This is what? Revenge? You fly all the way to Dubai just to humiliate me?" "Humiliate you? Patrick, you're not that important," she said with a cold laugh. "This is a business trip. I'm the keynote speaker at the Global Aviation Summit. The call with Sheikh Al Maktoum was to finalize the sale of 10 of our A380s to his private fleet." This, she pointed to the door, is my plane. You are just a passenger. A cheating, lying passenger who, I might add, is currently in violation of several corporate ethics policies. She stood up, tall and commanding. We're beginning our descent into Dubai. I'd like you to go back to your seat now. Jennifer, please, he begged, standing up. He reached for her. I'm sorry. I was a fool. It was a mistake. She means nothing. This can be fixed. We can be fixed. She looked at his hand, then at his face, with an expression of pure, unadulterated pity. Oh, Patrick, she said. You still don't get it, do you? You still think this is about us, Jennifer continued, walking over to a small, built-in closet and retrieving a black Prada travel bag. You still think this is about a marriage. This isn't a domestic dispute, Patrick. This is a corporate restructuring. What does that mean? He asked, his voice trembling. She turned to face him, zipping the bag. It means that our post-nup, the one you signed so eagerly because you thought your assets were the ones being protected, is now in effect. You signed it when you made partner, remember? Your lawyers insisted. He did remember. He'd been so proud. And in that post-nup, which my father's legal team drafted, by the way, there is a very specific morality clause. Clause 12b. It states that any act of infidelity, if proven, forfeits any and all claims to spousal support, shared assets, and, most importantly, any assets derived from familial-funded opportunities, which, as we've just established, is, well, everything. Patrick felt the floor drop out from under him. You can't take everything. I'm not taking anything, Patrick. I'm just keeping what was always mine. The penthouse? It's in the Davenport Family Trust. The cars? They're leased by my company. Even your beloved Apollo partnership. I'm afraid that's about to be dissolved. What? He whispered. You can't cheat on the wife of a major client and the primary equity partner in your biggest fund and expect to keep your job, can you? That's just bad business. I've already spoken to Leon Black. Your termination papers are being drafted as we speak. Gross misconduct and fiduciary negligence. It's a very clean break. She was dismantling his life, piece by piece, with the casual indifference of someone tidying a desk. But the Dubai deal, he stammered, grasping at the last straw. My meeting, the Al Jamil merger, I have to. Oh, that, Jennifer said, and for the first time she smiled. It was a genuinely amused, terrifying smile. There is no Al Jamil merger, Patrick, at least not for you. My competitors at Emirates were trying to buy them out. I, however, wanted their cargo division. So, I had my team leak a rumor to Apollo that Al Jamil was looking for an American partner. You, being the expert in the region, thanks to the connections I gave you, jumped at it. You created the deal? Just to ensure you'd be on a flight to Dubai this exact week. I knew you couldn't resist bringing her. She flicked her eyes toward the door. And I knew you'd be arrogant enough to book my airline. You thought you were giving her the world. You were just handing me the evidence. The flight manifest, the booking records, your adjoining suites. It's all a very neat little package for the divorce court. The prepare for landing sign chimed. The deal, Jennifer said, closed 48 hours ago. With me. Al Jamil's cargo division is now a fully owned subsidiary of Davenport Logistics. She walked to the door and opened it. The male flight attendant was waiting. We're on final approach, Mrs. Davenport. Thank you, Robert, she said. She looked back at Patrick. He was a statue, a hollow man. You should return to your seat. It's the only one you have left. Enjoy your landing, Patrick. He stumbled out of the suite, the door clicking shut behind him. He felt the eyes of the flight attendants on him. He was a ghost. He collapsed back into 1A. Kendra looked at him, her face a mixture of fear and impatience. What? What did she say? Did you fix it? Is she getting off at a different airport? Patrick just stared ahead. He couldn't speak. Patrick, talk to me. What did she say? It's over, he whispered, just as the wheels touched down with a gentle bump on the Dubai runway. The plane taxied, not to the main terminal, but to a private Royal Air terminal. Patrick watched out the window as a fleet of black Mercedes Maybachs pulled up on the tarmac. The seatbelt sign pinged off. Sophie's voice came over the intercom. Welcome to Dubai. We hope you have enjoyed your flight on Celestial Airways. We ask that all passengers in the Starlight Suites remain seated until our guest from the Founders Suite has disembarked. A private jet bridge, covered in a royal purple carpet, connected to the Founders Suite's private door. Patrick watched, horrified, as Jennifer stepped out, looking fresh and rested. A man in a pristine white dishdasher greeted her with a respectful bow and escorted her into the lead Maybach. Her luggage, which had been in her suite, was loaded into a second car. In less than 60 seconds, she was gone. Then, the jet bridge to the main first-class cabin was attached. You may now disembark, Sophie said, her smile returning. Thank you for flying with us. Patrick and Kendra stood up. They were the first to walk off. They stepped into the terminal, not the royal one, but the standard first-class terminal. As they walked toward passport control, Patrick's phone vibrated. It was an email. From Apollo Global Management, Legal. Subject, Notice of Termination. A second one. From Amex Centurion Services. Subject, An important update to your account. A third one. From jennifer.low.legal.office. Subject, You have been served. Attached was a 200-page PDF, divorce papers. Patrick, Kendra said, her voice high and sharp. My bag. Let's go to the hotel. I need a real drink. They cleared customs. A porter, arranged by Celestial, had their bags. They walked out into the humid Dubai night, toward the taxi line. Where's the car? Kendra demanded. You ordered a car, right? Yes, Patrick said, his mind foggy. He saw a man holding a Low sign. He rushed over. Low, that's me. The man looked at his list. I have a car for Mrs. Jennifer Davenport Low. She already left, Patrick said. Yes, sir. She took her car. I have no other reservation for Low. The man bowed and walked away. What? Kendra shrieked. She took the car? She left us here? We'll just get a cab to the Burj, Patrick said, his hands shaking as he tried to pull out his wallet. They got into a cab. Patrick gave the destination. As they pulled up to the magnificent, sail-shaped hotel, the Burj Al Arab, Kendra's mood lifted slightly. Okay, this is better. They walked in. Patrick went to the private check-in desk. Reservation for Low. Patrick Low, the Royal Suite. The clerk typed. He frowned. He typed again. I'm sorry, sir. I have no reservation for a Patrick Low. That's impossible. Check again. I do have a reservation for a Royal Suite, the clerk said brightly. For a Ms. Jennifer Davenport. It was... I see. It was cancelled, sir. About 4 hours ago. By the guest herself. Cancelled. Yes, sir. And the deposit was refunded to her card. Patrick's blood ran cold. He pulled out his black Amex. Fine. I'll just book a new room. Any room. Of course, sir. The clerk took the card. He swiped it. A small red light beeped. He swiped it again. Beep. I'm very sorry, sir, the clerk said, his voice dropping to a discreet whisper. This card has been declined. Declined? Patrick said, too loudly. That's impossible. Run it again." "Sir, I cannot. It is declined." Kendra, who had been watching this entire exchange, took a slow step backward. Her face, which had been angry, then fearful, now settled on comprehension. "It's declined," she stated. "It's a mistake," Patrick hissed, fumbling for another card. A corporate visa. The clerk ran it. Beep. "Declined, sir." A personal MasterCard. Beep. Declined. It was all gone. Jennifer hadn't just cut him off. She had scorched the earth. Kendra stared at him. He was no longer Patrick Lowe, master of the universe. He was just a man, sweaty and panicked, in a hotel lobby with no money. "Kendra," he pleaded. "Baby, this is just a mix-up. I'll sort it out. We just—" Kendra held up a hand. She looked at him, then at the opulent lobby, then back at him. "You lied to me," she whispered, her voice filled with a venom he'd never heard. "You told me she was nothing. You said you were the power. But you're nothing. You're a kept man. And you're not even that anymore." "Kendra, please! Don't touch me!" she shrieked as he reached for her. "You ruined my life. I'm associated with you. I'll probably be fired. You're nothing." She turned on her heel. She grabbed her own small suitcase and stormed out of the lobby, leaving him standing there, alone, under the gaze of the disgusted hotel staff. The humiliation was total. Patrick Lowe, a man who flew on $30,000 airline tickets, spent the next 3 days in a mid-range airport hotel near Dera, paid for with the last few $100s of cash he had in his wallet. He had tried to call his office at Apollo. His keycard access was revoked. His email was disabled. He finally got through to a junior partner who sounded terrified to be speaking to him. "Patrick, I can't talk," the man had whispered. It's a bloodbath. They're auditing your entire portfolio. They're saying you misrepresented your assets, that you defrauded the firm. It's not fraud. It was my wife's money. That's what they said, Patrick. Undisclosed familial conflict of interest. Your career. It's not just over here. It's over everywhere. You're done." The line went dead. He flew back to New York. He had to use a credit card he hadn't touched since college, one Jennifer's accountants didn't know about, to book a one-way economy ticket on a budget airline with 2 layovers. The 22-hour journey in a middle seat was a fitting punishment. When he arrived at his penthouse, the locks were changed. The doorman, who used to greet him by name, looked at him with cold pity. "I'm sorry, Mr. Lowe. I have instructions. You are not permitted on the premises. A box of your personal effects is in storage." He was, quite literally, homeless. Kendra was, as she predicted, fired. The morality clause at Apollo apparently applied to associates as well, especially when they were involved in a scandal that cost the firm a 9-figure partner. She had vanished, her Instagram account suddenly set to private. The divorce was finalized in record time. Jennifer, with her army of lawyers, steamrolled his single, court-appointed attorney. The post-nup was ironclad. He got nothing. No, that wasn't true. He got to keep his clothes, his personal debts, and a 2015 Audi he'd bought before his career took off. He was forced to sell the Audi to cover his legal fees. 6 months passed. Patrick Lowe now lived in a small 1-bedroom apartment in Jersey City, overlooking the parking lot of a 24-hour supermarket. He had, after hundreds of rejections, finally found a job. He was selling mid-level insurance policies at a small regional firm. The irony was bitter. He, who had once traded in billions, was now cold-calling people to talk about $50,000 life insurance riders. His life was a grey, repetitive loop of cheap coffee, polyester suits, and fluorescent lighting. He was invisible, and he was alone. One Tuesday, he was waiting at a newsstand to buy a paper. His eyes were drawn to the magazine rack, and there she was, on the cover of Forbes. It was Jennifer, but not Jennifer. It was Jennifer Davenport. She was standing on the tarmac in front of a sleek, silver Celestial Airways jet. She was wearing a stunning, royal blue dress, her expression confident, powerful, and serene. The headline blared, "The New Queen of the Skies, How Jennifer Davenport Took on the Titans and Built a billion-dollar airline, in secret." He bought the magazine. He sat on a park bench and read it. The article detailed her genius, her revolutionary business model, her uncanny ability to predict market trends. It spoke of her quiet, unassuming nature, which masked a brilliant, tactical mind. It mentioned her father, William, who was quoted as saying, "I've been in this business for 50 years. Jennifer is the sharpest mind I've ever known. I'm just lucky she works for me." The article briefly, clinically, mentioned her recent divorce. Davenport, who recently shed the Lowe name, is famously private. "I just closed a long, unprofitable chapter of my life," she told us. "Now I'm focused on the future, on building something that lasts." The last page of the article was about her new philanthropy. She had just launched the Davenport Foundation for Second Chances, a non-profit dedicated to providing legal aid and career training for women escaping toxic and fraudulent relationships. Patrick threw the magazine into a trash can. He felt a wave of nausea so profound he had to grip the bench. She hadn't just beaten him. She hadn't just erased him. She had used his betrayal as a marketing tool for her new foundation. She had turned his entire existence into a footnote in her spectacular story. He, Patrick Lowe, the master of the universe, was nothing more than the long, unprofitable chapter she had just closed. He had been a bad investment, and Jennifer Davenport always cut her losses. A year later, Patrick was almost unrecognizable. The sharp, arrogant edges had been worn down, replaced by the dull, rounded shoulders of defeat. He was thinner. His expensive haircut was gone, replaced by something functional and cheap. He sat in a diner, a real diner, with cracked vinyl seats and the smell of old grease in the air. It was the kind of place he used to mock. Now, it was the only place he could afford for lunch. He was stirring his watery coffee when the waitress came by. "More coffee, hun?" she asked. Her name tag read Lucy. She was in her 50s, her face lined with a tiredness he was beginning to recognize. "Yes. Thank you, Lucy," he said. She poured. "You look like you've had a rough one." Patrick looked up at her. He saw for the first time the person, not the role, not the waitress he had saved Jennifer from. He saw a woman working a double shift, her feet aching, just trying to get by. A profound, crushing weight of understanding settled on him. This was Jennifer's life, the one he had saved her from. But she hadn't been this. She had been 22, hopeful, and playing a part. This was real, and this was his new reality. He had been so arrogant as to think he had saved anyone. He hadn't. He had simply been a parasite, blind to the fact that his host was a giant. "Yeah," Patrick said, his voice hoarse. "You could say that." "Well, it gets better," Lucy said, giving him a small, kind smile. "Or it doesn't. But the coffee's always here." She walked away to help another table. Patrick looked out the window. A bus roared by, splashing grimy water onto the glass. Across the street, a small TV in a pawn shop window was playing a business news segment. He saw her, Jennifer. She was on a stage, cutting a ribbon. The chyron read, "Celestial Airways opens new trans-Pacific route." She was laughing, surrounded by pilots and executives, all of them looking at her with pure adoration. She looked happy, free. Patrick looked down at his coffee. He thought of the 30 Hauls champagne he'd ordered. He thought of Kendra's cheap excitement. He thought of his 60th floor office. And he realized, with a clarity that felt like a physical sickness, that his life hadn't been built on his success. It had been built on a lie he told himself. He had never been the one with the power. He had just been the one with the ego. He picked up his coffee cup. His hand was shaking. He had bought first-class tickets for his mistress, only to find his wife owned the plane. And in the end, she hadn't just taken his money and his job. She had taken his story. The self-made man narrative was gone. The master of the universe was a fraud. All he had left was a cheap cup of coffee and a bill he would spend the rest of his life paying. He drank the bitter coffee, and for the first time, he truly understood its taste. And that's where Patrick's story ends. Not with a bang, but with the quiet, crushing weight of karma. He didn't just lose his wealth, he lost his identity. Jennifer, on the other hand, was finally free to be the powerhouse she always was, no longer hiding her brilliance behind the role of a supportive wife. She built her empire while he was left to reflect on the fact that he was never the main character. He was just the obstacle. What do you think of this story of karma? Do you think Patrick got what he deserved? Have you ever seen someone's arrogance lead to such a spectacular downfall? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This story was a wild one to tell, and if you enjoyed this journey of drama and revenge, please make sure to hit that like button, share this video with someone who loves a good story, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel for more real-life dramas just like this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.